Welcome back. All right, let's talk about the Calgary Flames. As we get down towards the end of the teams to look at, the 32 teams and all of that. And sadly, Calgary, we still don't know what the status is going to be for some of these players coming into this season. I've got question marks next to Elias Lindholm's name and next to Hanifin's name because their names are out there a lot in trade rumors. It feels like with Backlund, they've settled down. I don't think Backlund's going anywhere. But it's part of this continuing storyline with Calgary that players want out. Gaudreau left last summer. Tkachuk left last summer. Tkachuk, of course, signs a massive long-term extension with Florida. Johnny Gaudreau opts to not sign where he was expected to and signs in Columbus. But at any rate, for Calgary, they need to make sure that they're not losing players for nothing. And so with expiring contracts for guys like Lindholm and Hanifin, who I've got the question marks next to, there's going to be a lot of speculation until either one of them signs an extension or they get traded, right? So we'll see what happens. Now, they were 19th in goals for, 13th in goals against, and points-wise, they were right close to the playoffs. There were points during this season where Calgary looked pretty good, and there were points where they looked kind of disinterested and like they were just falling out of the playoffs, and there was definitely this feeling you got from watching this team that not all was well. Alan Walsh, of course, stepping up during the season and discussing how he felt about how his client Jonathan Huberdeau was being treated in his first year in Calgary. Of course, for Huberdeau, he had an 8-year extension, which kicks in this summer. So, yeah, they need to make sure this works. Part of the reason why we have new people in charge of things is because you have to straighten this out. You can't have that 8-year contract for Huberdeau's aging as badly as it seems to have before it's even started. So when you look at the list of exits, it is substantial. You've got Tyler Toffoli, who goes to New Jersey, strengthens that team. Trevor Lewis returns to LA as a free agent. Milan Lucic, he returns to Boston as a free agent. Nick Ritchie exits as a free agent. Michael Stone, odds are probably told that they weren't interested in bringing him back, and he opts to retire and join the team in a development capacity instead. That's perfectly fine. No problem with that. And Stone could help. This is a good deep defense as well. So, I mean, as long as they stay healthy, they should be in good shape. They also watch Stetcher go back to Arizona. Mackey exits, and Phillips leaves as well. Matthew Phillips, there was a lot of hype around him from fans and media at points over the years, but it just didn't work out. Now, this is a team that shows having $2.4 million in cap space, according to Cap Friendly, and that's an even number. It's very rare to see a team have an even number on Cap Friendly. So with that $2.5 million, almost $2.5 million in cap space, combined with players that are on the market, they could pick up a big name, right? And that's the thing. For the Flames, if they want to avoid going into a retool or a rebuild, they have to bring in some big names when the big names leave. You have to make sure that fans know, okay, there's a really good chance of us still winning here, right? So like what Winnipeg did with Pierre-Luc Dubois, they would need to get a similar return if they were trading Lindholm. They would need to get a defenseman back for Hanifin and likely a young prospect as well, that kind of thing. So this is a team that is talented, but they're going to need some bounce backs to really get into the mix with playoffs. Huberdeau, 15 goals, 40 assists, 55 points. He has 8 years left on his contract, so he's not going anywhere unless he wants to. And even if he said tomorrow, I think I'd like out, I think I'd like to go somewhere else, I don't think you'd be able to find a taker for that contract right now. So Huberdeau is tied to this team for at least the next year, I would think. And again, the fact that both Huberdeau and Weegar signed these 8-year deals at the time was seen as a good thing. It was seen that this meant that Calgary was stable, and they were they lost Gaudreau, they lost Tkachuk, but at least they got something for Tkachuk, and at least they got players who wanted to stick around. Mangiapane, 17 goals, 26 assists, 43 points. Mangiapane needs to get into the 25 goal range, I think, this year. The effort is there. I think he does probably get back into, say, the 25 goal range. Again, if Huberdeau bounces into 25 goals, Mangiapane 25 goals, that's an increase of 18 goals right there. So it doesn't take long. Now, of course, making up for the loss of Toffoli is not going to be easy, but there are some young players here who might jump into some pretty substantial jumps in minutes, or might see some substantial jumps in minutes. You've got Dubé, you've got Pelche. Peltier's going to be one to watch, right? Because the fans want to see him succeed. And now with the new coach, maybe he gets that opportunity. You have Bishop. You have Stromgren as well. So there's some good NHL level depth here. We'll see what happens. Down the middle, you've got Lindholm coming off of a season where he had 22 goals, 42 assists for 64 points. It would be interesting if he got traded to, say, Columbus, wouldn't it? Just throwing that out there just as a, hey, put Lindholm and Gaudreau back together in Columbus. But anyways, you've also got Backlund, who again, it feels like has said all the right things and probably ends up staying in Calgary past this season. But he is an unrestricted free agent in 2024. So as optimistic as one might be right now that he probably stays in Calgary, we shall see. You've got Kadri, 24 goals, 32 assists for 56 points. He has 6 years left on his deal. Kadri's numbers lower than I think he or the team would have wanted, but predictable. Absolutely predictable coming off of what was a career year in Colorado. You go to Calgary, it's quite a different setup. It's a different system. So we'll see if his numbers, Lindholm's, Huberdeau's, if all these numbers bounce back with a new coach, because that 19th of goals for, big part of the reason they missed the playoffs. You've got Ruzicka, who's had some stops and starts along the way. Rooney, who's played well for the Calgary Wranglers. Does he end up getting called up at all this year? He's on an expiring contract as well. Connor Zary. At what point does Zary get a chance? Or, is it going to be a preseason where he has to really establish himself, or he's back in the minors? Nikolaev, you've also got Ben Jones here. So, again, you've got depth down the middle. Lindholm, I think, is a decent first-line center. Kadri and Backlund, decent 2 or 3, however you want to switch them. If you want to throw Kadri at second, Backlund at second, totally up to you. Then on the right side is where there's question marks. Now, if Coronado comes in and plays like Matthew Coronado could, and again, the potential is there for him to be a very good player in the NHL, that should boost some of what they lose with Toffoli exiting, right? They also have Sharon Govich, looking to bounce back from a down year. He had 13 goals this past year for New Jersey. You've got Coleman, who's got 4 years left on his deal. So Coleman, I thought, had a decent year in Calgary, but they definitely need more goals from all throughout the lineup, I would say, including Coleman. Dewar is there. Dewar's work ethic really strong. He absolutely impresses the announcers with his work ethic, because you hear it a lot when you watch Calgary broadcasts. Dryden Hunt, you have Cole Schwint, who was part of that trade for Matt Tkachuk. Maybe he gets an opportunity. And then Klapka's there for depth as well. It's a good forward group. It's not top 5 in the NHL or anything, but it's a good forward group. And so if you believe this team can jump back above the playoff line, they could. They absolutely could. Then on the blue line, you've got Hanifin, who again is a giant question mark as to whether or not he is going to be a member of the team going into this season. It's already pretty clear he's not going to sign an extension. I think with Lindholm, I think the extension talk is tied to how the team does. He may want to see, does this team bounce back? If so, then I'll stick around. If it looks like they're going to have another down year, maybe he wants out, that kind of thing. But it seems like with Hanifin, he just wants out. Rasmus Anderson's here. Chris Tanev, he's on an expiring contract as well. Love Tanev, wouldn't mind him back in Vancouver. I will say that every time I mention Chris Tanev. Uyghur, 8 years left on his deal. I thought he had a good first year with Calgary. Is it going to be worth that contract? This year's going to go a long way to deciding how well that contract might age. They've added Osterley on the blue line. They've still got Zadorov. Zadorov offensively was kind of a surprise this past season. One of the few really positive surprises, I think, for Calgary this past year was the play of Nikita Zadorov. I thought he played quite well. Shillington, vowing that he'll be back after missing last season. And that could be huge, too. Shillington should be in that top 6 ahead of Osterley. And if he's healthy, could push his way into some top 4 minutes. DeSimone is there for depth. You've got Gilbert there for depth as well, both of them on expiring contracts. Same as Shillington. Lyle, you've got Colton Pullman. He's on an expiring contract. And prospect Kuznetsov, who's been working with the Wranglers as well. And really, the Wranglers had a really good year. So we'll see if any of that translates to players being brought up to the Flames in order to see what they can do at the National Hockey League level. And in net, we might see that. So you've got Markstrom, an .892 save percentage. He's still got time left on that contract of his, and he needs to bounce back. Vladar, .894 save percentage. Both goaltenders lost the faith of Daryl Sutter during last season at different points, And so again, with a new coach, new general manager, and a new feeling in that locker room, maybe we see the goaltending numbers jump back, right? Markstrom's definitely capable of a bounce back season. So is Vladar. But then you've got Wolf. Wolf came in, just made the one appearance, played pretty darn well. Wolf had a great year for the Wranglers in the AHL. So he's definitely made it a little more difficult for the Flames. I would still not be surprised to see Vladar end up getting moved and Wolf being brought up to be the backup this season. Now, it's possible that you don't do that before the season, and maybe it happens during the season as well. And then for insurance, they've got Dansk there, who is on a one-year deal, so his contract, he's a UFA next summer as well. The Flames are going to be very interesting to watch up until training camp, beyond training, basically throughout this year. As long as you've got the Lindholm question, you've got the Hanifin question, and you've got other expiring deals like Tanev, like Backlund, who can absolutely get a pretty good return for you at the deadline if you're in a position to sell at the deadline. And that's the one question mark I have with Calgary. Are they going to stay close enough to the playoffs that they won't sell at the deadline? Are they going to be close to the playoffs? However, they understand they're not going to be able to keep these players, so you don't want to lose them for nothing. So you trade them at the deadline. They'll be very fascinating to keep an eye on. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, including how you feel that Calgary might do, and whether or not you think Lindholm, Hanifin, either of both, maybe neither, get traded before we get to training camp. I do expect some kind of movement from the Flames, but we're now 18 days into July. We expected that movement from the Flames in the final week of June at the draft, and it didn't happen. So outside of the Toffoli trade, we haven't really seen anything major go on in terms of this team making moves other than letting contracts expire. So what do you think? What do you think of their lineup? Who do you think goes? Who do you think stays? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.